dancers, thanks for tuning in this week to the Whole Dancer YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about coffee and how it might work or not work for dancers, depending on how you look at it. So coffee is one of my favorite things. It's a morning ritual for me. It's something that I have always really enjoyed, or always, at least since I was probably 16 or 17. It's something that I got into and I really enjoyed. And my coffee habit has been pretty consistent, although there have been times when I've drunk more coffee than others. Had, consumed. So I wanted to sort of think about, should dancers give up coffee? Is it a good idea for a dancer? And in what capacity should you be using it? So oftentimes, dancers can fall into the habit of having coffee in the morning, maybe coffee as an afternoon pick-me-up, and then sometimes when you're performing, you'll have it also before a performance for like that extra jolt before you get into the show mode. So it can get to be a little bit excessive. And that's sort of where my coffee experiment came from. For me, it had become, I felt, a problem because it was something that I would wake up and first thing in the morning, I wanted coffee, like very first thing before anything else. And I don't really like that feeling of dependence. And I also know that coffee can impact you pretty significantly if you have it right upon waking. Coffee impacts your stress levels. It can increase levels of anxiety. It can increase nervousness, irritability, and even drowsiness, which sounds a little odd, but when you sort of go through that downturn of the coffee consumption, that's when the drowsiness comes in, and then you're kind of like, that's when you're like, oh, I think I need more coffee, right? It also, a big thing to think about is it impacts calcium absorption. So naturally for dancers, you're trying to build strong bones, you want to prevent and avoid injury. So you should really not be consuming, at least not in excess, something that's going to prevent calcium absorption, because that's going to impact the strength of your bones. Headaches are a side effect of coffee withdrawal, or you can get a headache if you consume too much caffeine. So one way or the other, that headache can be a nasty sort of side effect. It can impact hunger. A lot of dancers have heard of this one and tend to use coffee because it can curb your appetite. However, at the same time, coffee can also increase your appetite. It sort of just depends on the person, it depends on the day, it depends on how you're using it. So it's not always a guaranteed appetite suppressant. So we can't really use it for that. You shouldn't be using it for that anyway. We need to be listening to and following those hunger cues, which is something that we definitely talk about a lot at the Whole Dancer and will continue to as we move forward. What else? It can increase your blood pressure, which is going to just make it harder for your heart to work, to get the blood to circulate throughout your body. So that's not great. We kind of would be better off avoiding putting that additional pressure and stress on our bodies. And, overall, it just can kind of become something that we need. It's one of those vices that you probably should monitor and keep an eye on, because you don't want to become completely dependent on anything except maybe dark leafy green vegetables and healthy fruits and vegetables and all of those things. I think it's okay to be dependent on those to feel healthy and vital and energetic, because those are some of the most energy boosting foods. So we should stick to those. So my little coffee experiment went like this. On a Monday, I was like, okay, no more coffee. And I switched just that day to black tea because I wanted to still give myself a little bit of caffeine so that I wouldn't have to go through any major nasty headaches or withdrawals. And then the next day, I'll be honest, I had a small cup of coffee. My partner and I have coffee together in the morning when he's home, and he happened to be home that second day, and I was like, oh, it's kind of nice when we enjoy this cup of coffee together. So I had one, but it was a small cup, and that's it. I drank it and I moved on. I didn't obsess about it. I didn't need more than the one cup. I just had one small cup and I moved on. Then Wednesday, I think I felt a little guilty about having that coffee on Tuesday when I was like, oh, I'm giving it up. And I had just herbal tea in the morning. So no caffeine at all, peppermint tea. And that day I started to get a little bit of a headache in the afternoon, which is important for me to note because it's an indicator that I likely had been going overboard with coffee. So it's important that I recognize that the headache is an indicator that I had probably been going overboard, and it was probably a good idea to wean myself off and find a new balance with coffee. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I went coffee free all 3 days, once again sticking to just herbal tea. It's nice because then you're able to wake up first thing in the morning and start with just plain water or start with just some lemon water. And that's one of the things that's going to help to detoxify your body in a really positive way and get your digestion ready for the day. Instead of coffee, where you're kind of adding a little bit of stress to your day just to start out. It's not the best early morning approach. So no coffee all those days. And then Sunday, once again, my partner and I were home together in the morning. He made coffee and I had some coffee as well. That was kind of what I was going for as balance. I wanted to be in a place where I didn't feel like I needed to have coffee every single morning first thing, because I think that dependency is not very healthy. So instead, which I've reached this kind of balance somewhat quickly. It can be more challenging depending on where your coffee habit is at. Now that I'm able to just have 1 cup occasionally, I still want to have some days when I don't have any coffee, just to not always be putting that stress or feeling any kind of dependency for that wake up or the boost or the focus. It's really good if you can get to a place where you're able to focus without outside help. Train your brain to get to that place where you're able to focus in without needing coffee or some other stimulant. Keep in mind, when I'm talking about coffee, the thing in coffee that can cause issues is caffeine, and that's found in other beverages as well. Soda, energy drinks, things like that. So if you're consuming other sources of caffeine, keep in mind that you may want to cut back or monitor those as well and find new balance with all of them that will work for your dancing. Ultimately, this is about finding the place where you have abundant energy, but it's coming naturally from food sources, from the fact that you got a great night's sleep the night before, and that you're really taking care of yourself and giving yourself the downtime that's necessary to boost your energy for classes and rehearsals. With coffee, if you do have an afternoon cup, one thing I would definitely suggest doing right away is starting to cut back on it after, say, 2 p.m. If you're drinking coffee after 2 p.m., if you're drinking it close to showtime, later at night, etc., you're going to have those times when coffee is significantly impacting your sleep. And we need to be able to sleep in order to allow our bodies to recover from the day of dancing. So that's my coffee story for today. If you have any thoughts on coffee, or you don't think you could ever give it up, let me know. I guarantee you can. It does take a little bit of mindset training first, telling yourself, I'm able to do this. I don't need coffee every day. I'm not dependent on it. So it takes a little bit of brain training, but you can certainly do it. And I would love to hear, if you try, especially, how it might impact your dancing and what the change is. Now, you definitely have to give it a little bit longer than just a single day or a couple of days, because those first couple of days you might be a little bit miserable and you might think, oh my gosh, I have no energy when I don't drink coffee. I have no focus. I don't know where I am. I feel all fuzzy. I get it. I've been there. I totally have gone through those times when I was like, this is needed. I can't survive without it. I get that mindset, but I guarantee you can. And it just takes some adjustment. And think to yourself too, you don't want to be in a place where you're dependent on a drink, because there are going to be mornings when you can't get it. I wanted to show you, I've switched to this tiny, it looks bigger because I'm holding it up close, but it's a very tiny little personal 1-cup French press for my coffee so that I'm not going overboard, and it's kind of moderated in that way. In addition to that, when I am drinking it, I slow down. I try to really enjoy every sip so that I'm savoring that flavor, because I do love the flavor of coffee. And also, I try not to finish the entire cup. That's kind of a goal of mine as well, is just to say, okay, having 6 or 10 sips is satisfying, and then I can cut it off and move on, which is something I suggest with any vice, whether it's sugar, whether it is alcohol, whether it is caffeine or coffee, whatever it might be. You've got to find that really, really moderate place that's healthy for you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If there's a topic, a specific food you want me to talk about, a specific diet or meal plan, reach out. You can always email me, jess@thewholedancer.com, and I will talk with you all soon.